When we moved to Texas, I needed to get a new cardiologist. And so my wife, she does a lot of this for me because before we had kids, she was an RN, and she knows a lot more than I do. I let her read those books. She read some medical books. Yeah. And so she's doing the research and looking at these things, and she shows me two doctors, both with this, within the same practice, same company, hospital, and saying, do you like one over the other? And one was a young white dude and one was a young black dude. And I said, I prefer the young white dude. And this is why. The reason why is not because I'm white, but because we currently live in a historical moment in the West, and particularly in these United States, where I know that both of these guys could be perfectly qualified. But I also know that if there's a chance that one of them was not qualified and was given a free pass, it'd be the black guy. I know that young white guy, there's no way he got a free pass.
Hi, God. Let's get straight into business. You guys, that most of the things that a lot of white folks emulate, they got it directly from their pastors. They got it directly from the church, where it is supposed, or they are supposed to hear the word of God. You think I'm joking? Now listen to this horrible thing this particular pastor have to say, and listen to black people experiences as well. Because the last time I checked, if I should go to a clinic, a hospital, because I needed treatment or I needed the doctor's attention, it should not be in my rights to choose a specific one. Do you get what I'm trying to say? And I looked east, west, north, and south the moment I saw this clip of this pastor saying this, and I was like, And this is not the first time that this pastor has literally said something like this. Recall that this same man of God has literally said, and I quote, that in his church, he don't even permit black people because he don't want a situation whereby black people will literally start practicing what they don't know. That most of the people that did the pew, that did a lot of crimes in the society are from black people. This is coming to a man of God that is supposed to lead people to Christ, that is supposed to lead the church for heavenly race. It's coming from someone that is supposed to be trying to win souls. Sad. Welcome to the channel. My name is Sonia. Subscribe, like, comment, and share. And credit belongs to the original creators of every single clips and stitches we have in our today's episode. And with that being said, let's dive right into this video. I'll be back with commentaries. Let's go watch.
My first experience of racism in my role as a nurse, in fact I was a HCA and I was working in an accident and emergency department, and while I was working I was allocated to work in minors, which is like a less acute area, just doing small dressings. Then about 20 minutes before my shift was finishing, one of the staff nurses asked me to do an ECG on a patient. So I got a handover. This patient, I think he was like 80 years old, and he'd had chest pain, and the family said, the nurse who handed over said he needs an ECG. Because they were short-staffed in that department, would I come and do it? So I went in, I introduced myself to the patient, and he had his son and his daughter. Now when I went in and introduced myself to him, I got permission, consent, and I started to put the probes on his chest. And then the son basically said, we don't want you to look after our dad. And I said, what do you mean? And then the daughter said, we want a white nurse. So I said, you can't actually choose what type of nurse, what ethnicity of nurse. I'm available and I've come round because they're short-staffed. Then he started calling me names. He was calling me, like, saying about my weight. And then his daughter interjected and they started shouting at me, telling me to get out of the cubicle. And then their poor dad was telling them, leave the nurse alone, let her get on with her job. So I was shaken up by this, so I left the cubicle and I reported it to the matron. And I said, they're telling me that I can't go into the patient, they won't let me do it. So the matron said, well, give them a white nurse. And they called the white nurse to take over from me, which they did. And then I was so upset by that because they didn't support me. But then it escalated because the matron said I could go home because I was so distraught. But then the next day, it was about 5 o'clock, I had a phone call from my employer saying, when you'd gone home, the patient's relatives had put a complaint in, and they said that you had them up against the wall and you damaged her thumb, but we had not come into any contact. And I was just really confused, thinking, how has that happened? But I thought, justice will prevail because I didn't come into any contact with the patient. There was witnesses, the cubicle was open, and also the father who was telling them get out of the cubicle. I felt reassured. So then they invited me in for this fact finding. So I remember sitting there telling them this is what happens, and the matron knew. And I defended myself, and I had a union, and they basically sacked me for gross misconduct because they said that the patient's relative had said that I was very aggressive towards them, and so they sacked me just like that. So what I had to do is I had to apply for to go to tribunal. So to cut a long story short, I went to Croydon Tribunal where I won my case. The judge said that they had ambushed me, and the judge said that because they didn't support me, it was completely wrong. However, it didn't end there, because what the family then went on to do, the family went to the local police station and they also reported me to the police. So the police had asked me to speak to them and give a statement, which I did, and I told this police exactly what I've just said to you now. And they said, okay, we're going to conduct our investigation. Then about 2 weeks later, or a bit longer, they said, there's no case to answer. So I thought, oh, thank God for that. I've won my case at tribunal, and the police have said there's no case. It was really traumatic, but I was so determined to then do my nursing. So when it happened, I was sort of in between becoming a nursing student and finishing my studies. But then when I applied to go to university, the university did a DBS check, and the DBS highlighted everything that had happened, but it was very biased, and it actually said that I'd hurt a patient's relative, and it said the patient's family had withdrawn consent. However, I continued to give care, but I got consent from the patient. So between the hospital and the police, they had narrated that situation and put it on my DBS. So therefore, when I was offered an unconditional place in the university, once they got that DBS, they withdrew my place. So then I had to fight Scotland Yard and to clear my name. And that was cleared in 2011. Once I'd cleared my name, they would accept me. I've got the letters and everything. I can always send you. The DBS was unbelievable. It was like a whole page, and I hadn't even done anything. But this is very common, and I'm seeing it a lot with my organisation. It's very common. What they do is they create a narrative and they put it on your DBS spitefully, on purpose, to stop you. Because anybody reading that, you would say, no, that person is not going to be able to work in care. So the DBS is almost like a tool that's used to...
A white patient can have dementia. They can forget their whole life story. They could be in psychosis, but they will never forget that they are racist. A patient today saw me carrying a jug of Gatorade because a patient was detoxing and she needed Gatorade. And y'all know, the patient said, yeah, that's right, carry that Kool-Aid.
One day I walked into a patient's room, and before I could introduce myself, the patient informed me that she didn't want a black or an Indian doctor. She would wait for a white doctor. The ER leadership informed the patient that we would be happy to treat her, but the hospital does not tolerate racism. The patient left without being treated. She judged me solely based on the color of my skin. I cannot tell you how many times I have gone into a patient's room to do a procedure and they have asked, have you done this before? I have practiced medicine for 28 years. I graduated from Southern University, a historically black university, and Cornell, an Ivy League. I have held board certifications in general medicine, general surgery, and emergency medicine, but none of that matters because I am being judged solely based on the color of my skin. You see, these patients doubt my ability because ever since blacks were freed from slavery, our society has depicted us as dumb, lazy, drug addicts on welfare, and they have dehumanized us by depicting us as monkeys and apes. We have been told that we are not qualified for positions that pay decent salaries or for leadership. This is racism. A popular figure said in a debate that if he saw a black pilot, he would question whether or not they were qualified. Our current president of the United States stated that when a military helicopter and a commercial airliner crashed in DC, it was because of DEI, meaning that because there were some pilots who were not white men, they were not qualified to fly, and thus they crashed. This is racism. So let me explain something. African Americans have to take the same classes, pass the same tests and exams, board exams, and get the same certifications as everyone else. If we want to become lawyers, doctors, PAs, pilots, there is no different test for us. To doubt our ability based on our color is racism. Let me make one last point. Just because you may hear some black people repeating and condoning these racist ideologies doesn't mean that it's not racism. There have been some blacks since the beginning of slavery who have walked side by side in lockstep with their oppressors. This does not make it not racism. Racism destroys all of us. It prevents us from being able to bond and grow as a nation and in the world. Racism hurts me. It hurts all of us. Please stop.
Other health providers can be super racist, but no one talks about how racist patients are sometimes. One time I was wearing scrubs, I had a whole badge on, and I was working with a patient and they were asking me like, are you homeless? I was like, no. And like another time, one patient I was working with was literally like, how are you qualified to be here? Like, did you even learn about these things? I'm like, bro, I have a biology degree and all I'm doing is shadowing. Like, what else do I need to do to be qualified to be here? Having to deal with racism in all these different fields and all walks of life is honestly just so exhausting. But
So I'm sure some of you guys probably believe stuff like this doesn't happen, but let me assure you, this is not the first time. Went to the ER, called in for patients. I had multiple patients, but this was my first one that I was going to see. And when I go to the ER, usually I stop at the nurse's station, look at the chart, kind of go over everything so I kind of know what I'm dealing with before I even start. This was a younger patient, probably in his, I think he was in his 30s or something like that. I can see him though because I'm really close to the bay. I'm looking at him while I'm looking at the chart, so I guess he notices me watching, and he asked the nurse that's in there, like, hey, is that my doctor? And she told him, yeah, that's Dr. J, you know, he's great. You'll be in good hands. And he was like, oh, no, absolutely not. I can't have any black people touching me. And I smirked because it's not the first time I've heard someone say that. It's been a couple years, but whatever. If you don't want to see me, I don't care. But she froze. She didn't know what to say. I was like, oh, don't worry. He can see whoever he wants, but I'm the only one that can see you right now. So if you can't see me, peace.
Last night was the first time in my nursing career I had a patient tell me they prefer not to have a black nurse. Story time. I didn't even get report on this patient yet. I go into the room, introduce myself, let the patient know I'm going to be your nurse tonight. If you need anything, let me know. We're going to start off, with a full head to toe assessment, and we'll proceed with any medication if there is anything. Patient says, oh, I asked to speak to the clinical manager 30 minutes ago. Mind you, this is 7:10. I wasn't even here 30 minutes ago. I said, is there anything wrong that you want to speak to the clinical manager? He's like, yeah. I want to let them know that I prefer not to have any black nurses. Oh, yeah? I'm like, well, I'm a black man, and I'm your nurse. Like, would it make you feel comfortable not to have me? He's like, yeah, to make me real comfortable. Can you get the clinical manager? I get the clinical manager. My clinical manager is black. He's blacker than me. My clinical manager walked in. He could not believe it. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. You didn't think black people was in positions like this? I was just waiting to see if he was going to say, well, is there somebody above him? My director's black too. She's blacker than me. At the end of it, we ended up switching the assignment. And it ended up working in my favor because guess what? I only had 2 patients all night. 2-1. In an empty bed. All night long. You can't beat that. Thank you for being you.
Would you trust these doctors with your life?
Indubitably, especially since when black patients are treated by black doctors, those patients experience better health and lower mortality. But also because if it wasn't for black doctors, everybody be dead. Dr. Daniel Hale Williams performed the first successful open heart surgery in 1893. Dr. Solomon Carter Fuller translated Alzheimer's work from German to English in the early 1900s. Dr. Charles Drew discovered that it was easier to bank blood plasma than store whole blood. Dr. Jane Cook Wright discovered that you can monitor the effects of drugs on cancer cells using patient tissue instead of laboratory mice. So would I trust my life with that room full of super melanated, highly educated, often imitated, never duplicated, extra elevated room full of geniuses? The answer, an unequivocal yes. Now cue the music.
Dr. King would have lived if he'd have had a black doctor.
Another satisfying racial moment. Thought he ate, but he yet famished.
People feel pain the same way as white people. A 2016 study showed that 50% of medical students and residents who were studied thought that black people couldn't feel pain the same way because they had thicker skin or their nerves didn't work the same way. Where is this from? It's a holdover from the days of slavery when white people had to feel better about using slaves. Black people used to be operated on without anesthesia and were used in studies without their consent, so this was a convenient lie. To this day, black people are less likely to get the same treatment in terms of pain medication. They're more likely to wait longer in the emergency room. They're less likely to be taken seriously. It's a holdover from the days of slavery. And in my field, this plays a huge role in the Black maternal and morbidity crisis. The call to action, doctors, nurses, anybody in the medical field, check your implicit bias. If you see somebody spreading these lies, stop them, but still stop yourself every time you're caring for somebody who has a different skin color than you and check your bias. If you are a woman of color, speak up. If this is happening to you, ask to speak to a different nurse, a different doctor, report them. Speak up.
They want to talk about Black incompetence. I want to talk about the fact that I had significant medical concerns over the last 2 years that required me to see way too many medical doctors who all wrote me off as a psychiatric patient with anxiety. 8 total providers, 4 of which were white males, 0 of which were Black providers to be exact. And do you know which doctor was that decided to get on board without hesitation, without second thought, and listen to what I had to say and believe what I had to say and determine that I actually need brain surgery? That would be the 9th provider that I saw, who also happens to be a Black female neurosurgeon. It's not Black incompetence that's at play here.
Please tell me, you guys have heard the story about the man in Louisiana who rejected the head surgeon for his kidney transplant because the surgeon was black. Oh, this story is too good. So apparently when the patient found out who his doctor was, he said, and I quote, "I prefer to have a white doctor. I don't want any black person touching or helping or assisting or cutting me open while I'm going through this process." The head doctor went to the patient and said, "Are you sure?" The patient apparently said, "Yes, I don't want your kind touching or helping me during this process." The doctor said, "Can I have that in writing?" Which the patient was also happy to do. Then the doctor left the room. A few moments later, a white doctor, a colleague of the head surgeon, came in to inform the patient that he's been bumped down the list because the kidney he was going to receive was coming from an African American. Apparently the patient is now trying to sue. But either way, I love karma. Why am I seeing MAGA Republican TikToks that are freaking out about segregation? I saw 2 that got my attention. One said, "Trump may have gone too far with this segregation business because I'm not ready for seasonless food or rhythmless music." And the other one said, "Oh no, if he pushes us to segregation, they're going to have their own group. We're going to have to find a way to infiltrate their spaces." That's the thing I love about MAGA. You give them enough space and distance, they will always say the quiet parts out loud.
This is how dismissive and ignorant some white people are. This lady says, oh, please, any doctor that is racist should not be practicing. If I had a black doctor, do you think that he or she would give a wrong prognosis because I'm white? First of all, no, a black doctor wouldn't do that, Jan, because we don't have that type of vitriol in our hearts. But second of all, this shows me you know nothing about medicine and history, because from the beginning of time, doctors have used black women, black bodies, period. The Tuskegee experiment, doing gynecological experiments on enslaved Africans here in America. And even to this day, the misdiagnosis or the lack of concern for many black and brown people due to the color of their skin by racist white doctors. Being a racist doesn't dictate if you're a doctor, just like being a racist doesn't dictate that you're president. And this is why, white folk, you need to stop inserting yourself in black issues that you are totally ignorant about. Jan.
I really don't want to be canceled for this, but I do have to tell you that the best doctors I've ever had are women of color. And I can't be more specific than that, and I don't want to stereotype, but I do feel like I have enough experience now to where I can say the best doctors I've ever had in all areas, gynecologists, primary care, specifically gynecologists, but like all of them have been women of color, the best ones. And I'm not saying that the other doctors are bad at all, because I think that becoming a doctor is very difficult. I have so much respect for all doctors in general, but there is just something about a woman of color doctor that I really just have the best experience. If I have a bad experience at the doctor, it's never a woman of color. I'm going to tell you that. And I wasn't even going to say this publicly because...
So initially I didn't know how to take this, but I feel like as black women, we're always on the defensive. When someone's actually giving you a compliment, we need to recognize it and take it. But on the flip side, it does suck that you have to be worried about being canceled for giving black women a compliment. It should be okay to feel this way. But having to defend yourself on something that is your opinion is kind of sad, unfortunately. But seeing so many people comment on her posts of shared experiences who agree with her is really heartwarming, and it validates that this is a true narrative. Working in a white and male-dominated field is not easy. Yes, we are the minority, but we actually are the most sought out. My overall experience as a black female doctor has generally been great, but sometimes that gets lost in the everyday challenges that we face and negative experiences that we have. So taking a step back and recognizing the good, the quality that we bring to the table and to our patients is actually really comforting. We are a rare breed, but we have the biggest impact. Women of color are unique. We are special. So thank you for recognizing that.
Should nurses be able to refuse care to patients who are violent, abusive, or racist? The reason why I bring this up is because I have been noticing a significant amount of hate towards healthcare staff due to skin color or just patients blatantly being completely abusive to healthcare staff. Like, how far does patient-centered care supposed to go when you're being threatened during your shift? We're taught to be professional, we're taught to be neutral, we're taught to be compassionate. You know, how far can we be pushed to the point where we're being spat in our face, or, you know, people are yelling at our face or being physically abusive to us? We're not punching bags, we're not robots, we're human beings trying to save your life or your family's life. You know, something really needs to be taken into considerations. Leave a comment down below because I'm curious of what you guys think.
So I had a new patient scheduled for this morning, and he called to reschedule his appointment, which is not uncommon. It happens all the time. So we have a new receptionist at the front desk, and she's telling me what happened. She's like, he called to reschedule, but I told him that you didn't have any available appointments until next year. And he's like, well, who can he see sooner? She's like, well, I told him that the only available provider right now would be the doctor who runs the practice. And then he goes, well, what is he? And she's like, he's a psychiatrist. And the guy goes, no, what is he? Is he black? Is he white? What is he? So she's like, I told him he was Middle Eastern. And he goes, no, I'll wait for the nurse practitioner. So then I'm like, well, did you tell him that I was black? And she's like, no, was I supposed to? And I'm like, well, if he won't see the doctor because he's Middle Eastern, I'm pretty sure he might have an issue with me being black. She's like, should I call him back? I'm like, yes. I don't want him wasting my time and I don't want to waste his. So she's like, but if he's okay with it, you're fine with seeing him? I'm like, absolutely. His beliefs do not affect the way that I provide care. I see patients on telehealth on a regular basis that have Confederate flags hanging behind their heads. But as long as you don't disrespect me, I'm not going to disrespect you and we're going to get along just fine. I actually never followed up to find out what happened when she called him back, so I'm going to find out and let y'all know.
If you're racist and you go to a hospital, I think you should be expecting to die. Because let me explain myself. My mum works in healthcare. She's a nurse, God bless her. And for those of you who don't know, she is also black. And she just so happens to have been born in England and holds a British passport. So for all intents and purposes, she is a born and bred Brit, right? Very key to this story. So she comes across this patient, and as she's, doing her thing as a very wonderful nurse, the patient goes and tells her, can you get a British person to help me? My mom takes a second and she's like, do you need to see my passport? We all know what you really want to say, but we're gonna play dumb here. We're gonna be a little bit obtuse and tell you that this is a British person standing in front of you. But, racists will always have audacity. They'll always be audacious in how loud and wrong they are. So this patient decided to clarify and was like, oh, yeah, British, white. I want a white person to help me. Now, for those of you who also don't know, in healthcare, and I feel like this is the same for wherever you go, healthcare is maintained by people of color. Whether you're in the States or whether you're in the UK, majority of doctors and nurses will be people of color. So my mom is looking around like, Christina's gone. Who are you calling? Because everyone here is either going to be black, Filipino, not going to be that one that you're looking for here. But apparently in this very situation, there was that one, because as they're having this discussion, this white nurse just so happens to be walking by, and she is like matron mother of the ward, like the senior of the ward, right? So the patient is like, praise be, hey, you, can you help me? And the matron looks at them like, because obviously my mom is in the room helping this patient, so she's thinking, what's going on? The patient clarifies and says, I would like a white British person to help me instead of this woman right here. This woman right here being the angel that's wiping your ass because you can't even go to the toilet by yourself. Anyway, the matron, she's on game real quick. She's like, cool, got you. So she walks in, quiet as a mouse. And when she starts to open her mouth, this patient's face drops because this white British woman just so happened to be Irish. I said to the patient, I ain't British either, so I don't think I can help you in this scenario too. My colleague is the one who's the Brit in this place. And literally, it was like, the satisfaction that I could imagine my mom felt, because my mom was literally standing there looking at the patient like, you ready to stop acting up and like get your ass wiped, or you like what we do? My mom told me that happened. I said to her, in all seriousness, you should have just let that patient die. If you go to a hospital, you want to find a white Brit, maybe you're shit out of luck and should just stay on the side street somewhere.
Anyways, thank you for watching, guys. And you guys have literally seen all of that. And I can tell you for a whole fact that these are some of the things that a lot of black doctors face. Now, nobody should come to my comment section because and start saying, oh, black people too select doctor, blah, blah, blah. Well, aren't white people permitted to select the person that is supposed to treat them, to select the person that they want to see? Have it at the back of your mind that black people did not just start selecting doctors, and black people don't just go to places that white people are supposed to attend to them and they'll open their mouth to say, no, I want a black doctor. They don't do that. Now, a lot of them that will literally go to hospitals, probably for checkup or for something, and will say, I would have preferred, go and check. They will say, I would have preferred us to have a black hospital, or I would have preferred a black doctor, but they can never say, are you the one going to treat me? No, it's not going to be possible. I need a white doctor or I need a black doctor. Black people can never say that. And more of the reason why black people started saying this, I would have preferred thing, is because of what we have literally witnessed happen in the society, especially this era where we can literally turn on our camera and vlog or show whatsoever is happening around us. If not, a lot of people were unalived on silence. A lot of people, a lot of things were done to them in silence without anybody knowing, as far as you look like me. Right? We have seen on countless occasions where a woman, let me even use that particular story of this woman that literally gave birth on the wheelchair because the white nurse was saying she wanted proper documentation. She need proper information before she can take her in, knowing fully well that this lady is fully dilated and baby was already coming out. That's how heartless she is. I've also seen a video where a woman was screaming and telling this white doctor, do not take my child. Why do you want to take my child away from me? And the doctor was accusing her what she literally has never done in her entire life, saying she have drug in her blood, blah blah blah. They need to take the child away from her. And this black woman stood on her ground and she said,